Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. We got quite a few questions over on the forums this week, but before we do that, we got to do two things. First, I do have my Patreon sponsors. I want to shout them out right from the get-go because after that, there's something else I want to say. Just a little update for you guys on a couple of things going on with me that I'm sure you've noticed over the past week and a half or so. Just want to level things out with you guys on a couple of things. But anyway, we have our sponsors over on Patreon first, those who have been supporting through hashtag demonetized on YouTube. You guys have been awesome over there, and it's time for another thank you. So anyway, we have our patron of light. First off, Khuja Cross, the Avon FC on Jenova. Always been an awesome supporter over on that platform. On YouTube, you guys see an image. On Twitch, you guys are just seeing my ugly face that you really don't want to see anyway, so I don't know why you're even looking at me right now. So thank you, Khuja Cross, the Avon FC on Jenova, for your continued support as the patron of light. We do have our very, very robust list of sponsors as well. We have on our standard sponsors, Rendil Gaming, the Sabo Empire, Mrhappy, the Red Wings of Baron FC from Solera, Fray Blackheart, Cidus, Oreo on Shiva, Syd Hellwind of Gilgamesh, Afro Ninja from Malboro, Cheesecake from Leviathan, Sploda, That Lame Weeb, Ashen, Emiya of Cerberus, Argoti, Tristam of Midgardsormr, Fafarian, Rendil, Giraffeswillrule, Stevie-Rex, and Neon. We have our elite sponsors. We have Just One Fox, we have Shadow Link on the Tomberry server, Dom, Asuka Wake from the Jenova server, Lemillionella of Midgardsormr, Sarah and the Avalanche family on Malboro, Janhyua Yotsuyu, and I always get it wrong every week, Zernik of Org 13. We have Kifkin the Grey Eagles on Exodus, Dark Graver, Katayoshi from Khuja, Skia Symphonia from Ragnarok, Rah Xephon from Exodus, Rynoet Westos, the Purple Warrior, Adric Red Steel on Exodus, Lexxie Valentine, Mantaru the Rivivus FC from Zodiac, Sour Cream Tribes from Jenova, Rynoet Chikara, Giraffeswillrule of Siren, First of Fairy, Phoenix Down for Company on Goblin, and Saren from Zodiark. We also have our premium sponsors, Kano Uzuki on the Jenova server, Ustarl on Coral, Sathal, Sarah Frost from Behemoth, Diablo, Holy Tabasco, Red Thorn Asura, Kernai Oni, Askenhawk from Shiva, Oscar, Crash015, Mustang, Serenity FC on Ultros, Kat Kazuma, Serial Kira on Cactar, Ignis Fairgun from Diablos, Flesher of Famfrit, Knockcord from Excalibur, Corvus Moonscar, Private Mikey, Spike, Ani Kirasami, Reduverdicker, Tin Colossus, Kill Hackman, Rawl Jr., and Killtastic Jones. Thank you to all of our sponsors over on Patreon for combating hashtag demonetized. And real quick, just before we get started with the questions, some of you may have noticed not a lot of YouTube content on the channel after the Melee Versus came out. It's been a bit of a rough last week for me on a personal level. As a lot of you know, a couple weeks ago I went and revisited New Jersey because my father's birthday was then. He had just passed a few months ago, and it's just been kind of, you guys have seen me go in and out of these moods. I just like to level with you guys, let you know kind of when I'm in one. So things like Kingdom Hearts on Tuesday and Friday hasn't been happening as consistently. There's some Octopath videos that are about 50% done that haven't been released as well. One of them on a great power leveling method that I had a discussion with community member Trigger Frog over in Slackaholicus, under the streamer. In his Twitch channel, we had a discussion back and forth about different zones, things that he had found, and things that had absolutely trumped the things that I had found. And so that's a video I've gotten a lot of questions about leveling in that game. Where's the best place? What's the best method? How important is Bewildering Dance? That's one big video that I kind of want to get done this week, but still expect there to be kind of a short amount of videos. Expect a Behemoth video from Monster Hunter World when that happens. Expect a We Happy Few video. I actually have a box that they sent me, the time capsule that I did an unboxing for that I want to post a YouTube video for. I also did a sponsored stream for them. We'll be doing a sponsored stream for Mr. Happy Few, as it is to me, on August 10th as well. We, of course, have Pagos, who will be getting videos on. Rathalos will be getting videos on. We also have, I'm probably not going to play Monster Hunter World on PC, so probably nothing on that. And there's something else I was forgetting in August that I was going to do a video on. Nope, there's some other things, but those are a little further out, so we'll leave those as a surprise for later. So don't worry too much about me, just letting you guys know there hasn't been too many videos after that Melee Versus on the YouTube channel. Anyway, with that, we've got 13 questions over on the forums, plus we have Twitch chat questions, so let's get started with the forum questions. And as we start question number 1, I can feel my tumbly rumbly. Hello, first question, hey Haps, long time no ask of a Koopo nut on the house. Giggity. The question's not 14 related, but feeling you might be able to help. So anyway, you have a successful YouTube channel and also a successful Twitch channel. Both options have VODs, live streaming. So you go into what benefits there are of you streaming on Twitch as opposed to YouTube, and then uploading VODs to YouTube and not Twitch. It's simply a numbers thing, or does Twitch have better options for streaming and YouTube for VODs? Is it just simply that each service was around first in those particular areas? You were already around before YouTube streaming happened, before Twitch VODs happened. I'm asking because I'm struggling with that question myself. I have a normal VOD YouTube channel as an F1 management game that I run with subscribers and an audience, but I want to start streaming races when I do. Is it worth starting fresh on Twitch and rebuilding an audience? Should I stay where my existing subscribers are and stream on YouTube? So this is actually a discussion that happens a lot in this space. You know, now that some more competitors have popped up, YouTube streaming, Facebook streaming, Mixer, a lot of people, of course, wonder exactly what they should do if they create multiple pieces of content. I'm of the opinion that if you already have, in this day and age, like a decent YouTube following, you should probably just stream on YouTube. It just makes the most sense from an exposure means of handling the channel. But regardless, just because someone subscribes to your pre-recorded content, it never directly translates to how many people will watch you live stream, because they're two completely different forms of content. So my first recommendation in this day and age, if you do have a YouTube channel and those are where your subscribers are and that's how you started making content, I would try to do YouTube streaming from the get-go, just because that's already where your fan base is. If that doesn't work, then you look to other platforms and see about integrating into the other platforms. But the bottom line is you need to approach streaming in a specific way before you worry about necessarily the platform it's on. Platform, timing, those are important, trying to carve out a niche. But you also have to consider where the majority of the of your community, like, are there more average viewers for your type of stream on Twitch? If the answer is no, and you already have a YouTube channel, then that factors in as well. Is there really not a huge community of live stream watchers for your game on YouTube, but there is on Twitch? Well, then you might want to juggle both. It's about kind of analyzing. It's a lot of statistics work. You always have to analyze statistics and try to find information that may not be readily available to you. I have a feeling for you in particular, though, you're going to want both things on the same platform. And then if that doesn't work out, then you can start looking at the stats on other platforms. The only reason I'm the way I am now, Twitch, I prefer for the 14 community on Twitch in particular. I'm very integrated in a lot of the communities on Twitch, the people I know. So it's nice for me to be on that platform because it's the platform that I started live streaming on in the first place. And it's, I don't know, I also just kind of like the dynamic of Twitch a little more. I feel like it's much more community driven than some of the other platforms, especially. I feel like YouTube, you kind of keep to your own community and that's it. There's not really as much exciting room for expansion, or not as much, I guess, integrated room for expanding into communities and other games and stuff like that. You kind of just have to have your own following there. But for videos, I much prefer YouTube. Twitch's video searching, just not great. This is not the reason people go to the website. So it's really hard to convince people, yeah, search for videos on Twitch. It just doesn't sound natural. Maybe one day it will be. Who knows? But until it is, I'm not going to focus too much on Twitch VODs only being for Twitch, or content on Twitch only being on Twitch. All right, question number 2. Hello again, Mr. Happy the Baddie. I am not a bat. I have coffee, though. That doesn't matter at all, does it? My question is, what do you think, how it would work if we physically are able to do emotes to each other? You know, like carrying another player, you shoulder, like bump your shoulders, or carrying player over your shoulder, fist bumping. You know what? It's something people have wanted for a very long time. I don't remember what their answer was in regards to it. I think it was very difficult for them to make it in such a way where it directly interacted with one another, as opposed to just the player's actions. Timing wise, and making it so one person could execute a command and both people would do it, because then it gives one player an option that gives them some control over the other player. Or do you make it like something they both do it within a certain range and then it creates a new emote? I don't remember the technical explanation of it for Final Fantasy XIV in particular. I don't think it's impossible. I just think it's probably not something they're really focused on all too much, instead of just giving people the option to have emotes that make sense when you do them to one another, and giving you the freedom to kind of work on it and time it. I don't know if they want to do, yeah, chat's bringing up that Team Fortress has prompts. Would you like to perform this emote? I guess it's just probably not a priority for them above all else. I'm okay with it. It's probably something I would seldom use, or seldom accept, because the last thing I need is prompts popping up all the time. I'd probably disable it, to be honest, for me personally. But yeah, I just think it's, for now, just not a priority for them. I don't know if it's that or it's a technical thing, but it's probably just not that much a priority. Question number 3. Hello again, Mr. Happy. Hope your day is going well. I'm doing all right. I still got some coffee here. Now my day is gonna be better because I got. Yeah. The previous Monday Q&A had a fair amount of crafting and gathering questions, so here's one I've been thinking about for a while. Why is it the vast majority of games, even single players, stick to such boring crafting and gathering gameplay? I'm sure some people out there enjoy it, but I think it's safe to say they are the minority. Why not add some kind of mini puzzle game or something to up the entertainment value? For example, 14 Crafting could have you playing a 60-second match 4-type mini game in which... Okay, so I'm going to tell you very quickly why this doesn't happen. Because when you're doing crafting and gathering, the whole point of them is the end result. What you care about most is how that affects the rest of your gameplay, whether it's money, whether it's gear, whether it's some sort of upgrade for you. That is the purpose of crafting and gathering. When you have to do a lot of it, mini games get very tedious, very tiresome. They're not really engaging that much. You can't make them overly insane either, so you have to restrict them to being very basic, at which point why does it even bother to exist? In case you didn't know, since my chat actually brought it up and I was about to bring it up, the mini games that are in the gold saucer for mining and botany, that's how you used to have to gather in 1.0. That is actually how it worked in the game, and it sucked. It was a horrible thing that very few people have any nostalgia for, other than the, haha, yeah, remember, thank God they don't do that anymore. So that's the main reason why. They stick to the kind of gameplay because of what the purpose is for crafting and gathering. The purpose is not for it to be this intricate process. And I know you might say, but look at 14, but it can be simplified a lot. That's more of an educational thing and less of a skill-based thing. You just need to know the numbers and how they stack up. And it's just that that's where the gameplay resides. It just isn't as important to be super intense gameplay. And I can tell you right now, I already don't like crafting and gathering because doesn't tickle my fancy. If it had a mini game, I can tell you right now, I would give 0 fucks on a personal level about crafting and gathering. If it is anything more than it was now, I would just, no, that's it. Like, I don't even do Beast Tribe quests at that point. Fuck it. I don't need no wasoi. I don't need it. It ain't worth it. I ain't doing it. I ain't doing it. That's all there is to it. That's just me, though. That's just me. People just, it's all about the result. Question number 4. Hey, Mr. Happy. I hope you're doing all right. I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. My back hurts a little bit. I slept on it weird. I keep stretching it out, hoping it'll work itself out, but not yet. I have one quick question today regarding your YouTube channel, if that's okay. It is okay. I have a job that requires me to job around a lot as a sales rep, and to entertain myself, I usually load up a lot of YouTube stuff, obviously audio only, one of which is the past Day of the Realm episodes. While doing this, I've noticed some episodes are missing from the playlist, and when I noticed and went to check if the episodes are still on the channel, they are, just not on the playlist. Is this deliberate omission? No. Half the time, it's just, it went live and I forgot to put it in the playlist. Apparently, last week's State of the Realm isn't even on SoundCloud. I uploaded it, but I guess the upload must have failed to SoundCloud, because generally I upload it to SoundCloud and then that filters it out to the RSS feed. Just a really simple way of doing it that doesn't really require me to know much about RSS feeds or upload it to other sites, so that's just how it's been going for the time being. That's just an accident, so if you know which episodes they are, just let me know and I'll throw them on a playlist. And for those waiting for last week's State of the Realm on iTunes and Android and SoundCloud and all that, today. Because there's today, meaning yesterday when you guys see it on YouTube, because it should have been there already, and I don't know why it's not, so I gotta try uploading it again. So no problem. Question number 5. Hey Haps, long time viewer, first time asker. Thank you for asking the question. Bonus, your coffee will stay fresh and hot, but not too hot. I think optimal drinking temperature of coffee is 140 degrees. 140? I think it's 140. Generally, when a cup of coffee is fresh, it's like 170. And some people can drink it at that. Those people are crazy. But like the optimal drinking temperature is supposed to be like 140, I believe, in that range. So yes, if you can keep my coffee permanently at a temperature of 140, I would definitely much appreciate that. So my question is about the loot system in 14. So right now you get all your battle gear in 1 of 2 ways, in my opinion at least. It's not much of an opinion. It's factual. You either play through dungeons, raids, trials. Okay, that's a lot. That's 3 different things. It's all combat related, but those are 3 different things. Q through Duty Finder, or you go with crafted items. So there's a few other options. So when it comes to earning gear, you can't really just group up all combat stuff and say, well, it's either you do anything combat related or you craft it. Because that's, in an MMO, those should realistically be the ways you go about earning gear. It should generally be about breaking down each way in the combat or each way in the crafting that you would earn it. For example, like the way that the skill requirement or the party requirement for a dungeon is vastly different than what you would need for a raid, and then what you expect out of individuals in a trial is vastly different than what you'd expect in Heaven on High or Eureka. And all of those, and then the 24-man raids and tomestones, those should all be generally considered different ways of kind of attaining the same goal or working towards the same goal, all with different maximums kind of set in place, so you can use them kind of like stepping stones in a sense. And then, of course, crafting, which you mentioned here. So I just want to stop that, because when you said 2 ways, I thought you were going to be like raids and tomestones, because that's what most people say when they look at 14. They go, those are the 2 main ways to get gear. And they're the ways to get the highest gear. Ultimate, of course, having the weapons, except in 4.5. Feels bad, man. Something that's about 11 is how there's a lot of opportunity going out and getting loot in the world, whether that be killing normal enemies, getting NMs to spawn, trying to get rare drops. So I hope to see 14 is just more use of the open world, which is, I think, a fair thing to want. I feel like we just use it for the story and then duty finders. One of the feelings I like in Eureka is a sense of using the whole zone, revisiting zones to kill A and S ranks. Think we'll ever get anything that allows us to use the open world more to an extent. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with wanting more open world stuff, but wanting open world stuff that actually rewards what you would consider, I guess, modern gear or raid competitive gear, that it starts to get a little bit dicey, because hunts kind of already do that. You mentioned A and S rank hunts. You can use the tomestones you get from them, obviously for the standard ways that you would normally use them. You can also use them for upgrade materials in the odd-numbered patches, which can allow you to upgrade to 370 gear as well. So in terms of earning gear, hunts is probably the main thing that I would draw some comparisons to. In terms of more open world content, generally the way open world content is considered is, a lot of it, as you said, is lore, it's world building. Beast Tribe quests, hunts, treasure maps are all considered kind of open world content. Fates are considered open world content, which generally aren't too much different than the way most other games end up doing them. It's just that fates aren't overly difficult, and the reward structure for them is kind of all over the place. It's mostly glam or minions or triple triad cards or experience points, which is probably the main thing they used to be known for until we had Heaven on High and Palace and all these other options that people really prefer to use nowadays. As for going out and spawning NMs and stuff, it's like, generally the idea of having enemies like that out in the world isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you need to consider how powerful that monster is, how effective it is in other content, and how does it compare to everything else that's available in the game itself. Just creating more options to earn gear doesn't necessarily make the game more engaging, and for some people it makes it even less engaging, because the things that they enjoyed using for gear are now being usurped by other forms of content that may reward something better, or may be a different way of obtaining the reward, may take less time than the thing they were doing before. So it's all about creating options, and with the option that you're asking for in particular with Final Fantasy XIV, I have a feeling it kind of falls to the wayside. I think there are ways to do it that would work. I think specifically being able to spawn stronger enemies out in the world with a pre-made party is probably the number one way to go about that. Force spawn them, meaning. Treasure maps is really the way we do that now, so maybe that's an avenue they should look into, expanding a little bit more if they're looking to actually obtain more options. But it's also the development time of how long it takes to make even more gear to be obtained in another way. That's a very big undertaking, and I don't know that they're going to do that pretty much ever outside of something like Eureka, in a sense. So, yeah, I don't know. It seems like you want it more from a gameplay perspective, but I don't think 14 is really in the spot to add that from a gameplay perspective, both with the way gear works and just how many options there already are in terms of gearing up overall. All right, question number 6. Hello, Mr. Happy McMahon. What? Okay. This is a long one, and it's not about FF, so you can time-lapse. There's a TLDR at the bottom if time is a factor. I was planning on going to the German Fan Fest back in February 2017. Spent 9 months trying to find friends to go with and failed miserably. Now with the French Fan Fest coming, the friends I know in other countries back in November blatantly said they were not going to go, and now they seem to have talked secretly and decided to go all of a sudden. My goal for the next event is to try and make friends in my own country to go with that event. However, I seem to be truly terrible at making friends. I don't know if I'm the best person to ask about making friends, because I'm a shitty friend. I'm like the friend who like calls you very rarely because I'm so focused on my own like work and life and travel and whatever the hell I'm working on. I might be the worst person to ask about this shit. because I am a terrible. I will be friendly to people. I don't treat people like shit. If we're friends, like I'm not that kind of. I'm just like the oh my god, I'm so like focused on this, and that, and it's like oh yeah, we should hang out on Friday, and then I'll see them once, and then like 3 months, I'll hang out with them like 3 months later after that. So is there a skill you can learn with your small? I just learned to talk to people online, and then I meet people from online. I meet them at events. That is how I learned to do things. So that's the only advice I can give you. I met my girlfriend online. The girlfriend I've been with for 5 years. Actually, her anniversary was just, what's it, 29? 9 days ago. We've been together 5 years. I met her on Ragnarok Online too. Half the friends I have now I met online. You know, a lot of people in the 14 community, people I see at the events, people who I've been moderating for, like, those are the people who my friends are. Even back when I lived in New Jersey and I had, like, in-person friends that, like, I went to school with, I was barely friends with them when we were actually in school. It was when I started playing video games with them that I fucking became friends with them, because we would talk online when we were fucking playing video games. And then we'd get together and we'd drink, they'd get fucked up, I'd be the one sober one, and then I'd laugh at them the whole time. It worked pretty well, I feel like. So I don't know if I'm the greatest person, but probably just need to find communities for your region in Final Fantasy 14 and then be like, hey, who's going? You know, let's make plans, stuff like that. So I don't know if I can really help you all that much with this, especially because the dynamic in here in the States is a lot different than the dynamics over in Europe. I hear a lot about the EU servers in terms of country dynamics and how people treat each other in the EU servers. So I don't know that I can necessarily provide the best advice, especially to that region, as it all seems to function quite differently than it does over here. That's what I did, though. I'll just tell you what I did. I told you all that stuff, and that's unfortunately the best I got. Question number 7. Hello, mister. Hello. I seek your guidance and advice. I seek to answer your question. I've been playing 14 since A Realm Reborn came out, feeling like it's more... Oh, okay, I already know where this is going. It just feels like something I have to do, and I have to get my weeklies done before the reset. I find myself wanting to hurry up and get through it so I can log off and do something else. So I don't even have to read the rest. I'll do it, but I already know what the answer is going to be. I saw the first sentence. I was like, okay, I get this question on like a weekly basis. So I'm not complaining there's nothing to do. I'm just saying it's more of the same. It's because the same old things over and over again. I'm not very confident the next expansion will bring any real game changers. That's why I'm not sure I want to continue once Stormblood ends. I really don't think new jobs are enough. New jobs are just a new way to play the same activities. So I'm going to say a blanket statement that generally applies to all games. You can change the rules, you can change the way things obtain, but what you can't change is that you are, in essence, playing the same game. That's the bottom line. It's not going to magically the next day be a different game or have a major game changer. Now, I know some people will reference World of Warcraft, where generally they make massive changes to the jobs every expansion and blah, but guess what happens every expansion? You still have the dungeons, you still have the raids, you still have the world quests. Like, they try and throw new ideas out there, but it is ultimately in an MMO that's about, I'm saving the world. Your goal is to just fucking kill things, pretty much. And it's a matter of how many different ways they can give you to just kill a bunch of shit. And that's all it's ever going to be. It's never going to be a different experience that is so vastly different from the way it was before that you feel like, oh my god, this is everything is different. No, it's the same, just the way you're doing things is going to change. And even then, it's debatable how many people really want to see that kind of massive change. We know where there's a lot of vocal people who want to see stuff that's different, but how much different is, like, how far can you really deviate from what's worked and still do something different and make sure you don't completely fuck people who like the game being the same, or like the game having this formulaic approach? And there's no real way to say for certain that one or the other is the superior way of doing it. A lot of people, when big change comes, people are afraid of change. A lot of people love change. A lot of people want things to be more dynamic, but they also are just going to blow through it and then treat it exactly like it was before, and then you risk alienating the people who are fans of the consistency from before. It's really tough. It's really, really tough to make something that actually feels like it's different content. Now, that being said, 14 absolutely has room to expand the way we use certain content. Looking at Palace of the Dead, Deep Dungeons in general, you know, great, we have this floor, every floor is different, you know, the rewards you get from it, you know, are somewhat consistent, but you at least have, you know, certain risk factors and things that make the experience the same, but still different every time. You know, why don't we have a PvE leaderboard for that? You've heard me bring that up. You know, a PvE leaderboard all of a sudden that puts people competing against each other is a new way to play the game. It's a new way to enjoy the game. It's a new goal for you to reach for every time. Dungeons, you know, we have 4-man dungeons. Those are generally the same. Boss, trash in between, you know, loot off each boss, whatever. Obviously, people refer to World of Warcraft's Mythic Dungeons, where every run you do, you know, you're put on this shorter time. You put on the short time limit. You're given these random modifiers. You know, you have to kind of approach it based on, you know, what you get. It's a little bit of a dynamic experience, and then, you know, you constantly like re-roll it till you actually fail, and then you just end up with these crazy +5, +10, +15 level mythics that are really pushing you to the most that you could be pushed based on the party size. So people like to reference that a lot. People like reference open world content, and I generally don't find that much different than normal content. So I guess for me, that doesn't really do it. If you look at Eureka, we're getting the logo system where DPS are going to be able to tank, tanks are going to be able to heal. Who the hell even knows how that's going to work? So it's all about making sure when you experiment with new things, you're ready to take a fall off. You're ready to take that risk. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We had Diadem fail completely, Lords of Verminion fail completely. Then we had Treasure Dungeons and Deep Dungeon succeed massively. And then we've had Eureka, which people would debate if that succeeded, but considering the number of people that play it, I'd consider it a success. It's all about how it actually plays and it's implemented, and it's still the same game. No matter what, it's always the same game. Creating a new experience, you're still just killing shit. It's never going to change on a fundamental level. It's only about how you actually go about killing shit. So, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you and convince you. Generally, when people like you happen, where you're just like, not really feeling it anymore, I say, then just play something else. I say, provide your feedback, say that this is how you feel when you leave. Provide that in a way that's constructive, and then, you know, just take a step back, you know, play something else for a little while, come back when you haven't seen things in a while and more stuff is going to be fresh, and do that. Take longer breaks, take long breaks between your play sessions, whether that be for story related content, raids, whatever it is. Feel free to take that break. You shouldn't need convincing. You should just feel free to just play what it is you enjoy, I feel. All right, question number 8. Hey, Apps, how you doing? You doing all right? You said you're doing all right. I'm doing all right, too. I'm glad you're doing all right. I tried to explain this before, but I'm super opposed to the concept of introducing... But you seem super opposed to the concept of introducing Blitzball. I've seen a lot of arguments against it, but I want to know what your thoughts on this. I want to know your thoughts on the subject. People said if you want to play Blitzball, you should play Final Fantasy X, which is literally the argument for most things in 14. If you want to do X, go play Y. People seem to defend Ultimate, Savage, Extreme, despite the fact Blizzard would have Blitzball, would be more accessible. I understand the Lords of Verminion rang hollow. That seems like something that was introduced out of the blue, whereas Triple Triad still seems to have players and support. The dev team needs to focus on other features. Why spend so much time on things like new Triple Triad cards, Ultimate Fights, and other extremely niche aspects? I haven't heard any truly compelling arguments against Blitzball specifically. All right, so with Blitzball in particular, one of the big things with that is first expectation. People wanted to play exactly like it did in Final Fantasy X, which is not an overly complex or overly intricate system altogether. When a system is designed for a single player game at first, it's a very delicate balance when moving it over to a multiplayer experience. And Yoshida has expressed the number one reason why it hasn't happened yet is they can't decide whether they just want it to be the exact same Final Fantasy X experience and not really innovate on it at all. Then try to add multiplayer to it, which does actually change the dynamic. It can't work the same when you play with multiplayer. Or you have to completely redesign it, do something like the Final Fantasy X-2 one, where it's more like a team manager game and less of a direct, hey, I'm playing Blitzball game. But then people say, but that's not what we wanted. That's not what the original is. And it's just because of the setting, really. Triple Triad's a card game. Card games are inherently meant to be played against other people. At their base, they're meant to be played against other people. Just they're designed that way. We never had the opportunity to do it before. And so with this, you know, it worked out pretty well. It's something with simple rules, yet it has its complexities. And it is mostly derived based off of kind of how you prepared for it, what cards you brought, versus the situation that you're given in its entirety. With Blitzball, there's not really a whole lot going on here. It's really, a lot of people don't seem to accept it's kind of like a turn-based sports game. That's the best way I could think to describe it. You move around the arena, you stop in a spot. If there's enemies near you, they become part of your turn, and then you choose a move. It's literally a turn-based sport. That's what it is. So then do they have to change it and make it a full active sport or a full active water sport? Do they keep it as a turn-based sport at the same time? How do they integrate players recruiting? Can they recruit other players? Do they recruit NPCs? How do they do a reward structure? A lot of the times when it comes to single player or aspects that are in single player RPGs, people's interest in it is based on reward. And in the case of Final Fantasy X, one of the best skills and weapons in the game is obtained via this. So that can't be in this. Does it just MGP this time? Why would people do this for MGP when they could just do the other thing for MGP? You know, or do they do certain outfits? All right, well then people just want to do it for the outfits and they're done. It's all about how much this content kind of rides out. How is it incorporated into a multiplayer scenario? How do we motivate people to do this content? And how do we make sure that all that effort isn't eventually wasted? With dungeons, raids, stuff like that, they tend to try and add some replay value there. They add mounts to it. They make sure there's constant glamour that's always there that you're going to want. There's titles, there's there's achievements, I should say, that reward titles and mounts as well. There's all these different factors that keep people going back. And then for dungeons, you have roulettes, which people use to level for level 50, below level 50, between 50 and 60, level 60, between 60 and between 61 and 69. There's ways to get more mileage out of that content. Now, you're not asking about that in particular. You're asking about extreme content, which I kind of covered with the mounts, with the story-related stuff. Savage, a pretty sizable amount of people now do Savage, where I think it's a little bit harder to call it niche. I think we see like an 18% of the community on average. I think it was Deltascape had 18% of players had cleared the entire thing, something along those lines, and I think it was like closer to like 28% had cleared all of the first fight or the first two fights. I can't remember. I might be 18% was the first fight, and then it moved down to closer to 10%. It's been a while since I looked at those numbers, but I was super impressed by the number of people who do it. The bigger thing then we move on to Ultimate, which is the biggest thing. Ultimate is basically a bunch of advertising for the game for a short period of time. It's something that gets the super hardcore players dedicated, those who are like really, really dedicated. It gets them playing something, gets them excited about something. It generates discussion is one of the biggest things that it does. It also generates a lot of interest around the game at a particular time. So it doubles as a marketing tool. Blitzball, debatable if it would really be a great marketing tool. You know, you could say, oh, but people loved Final Fantasy X. Yeah, but not a lot of people specifically like Blitzball. And I know it's anecdotal what I'm saying right now. It's no hard evidence that says a lot of people don't like Blitzball. But I feel like if there were a lot of people who like Blitzball, we'd see it a lot more. We'd see the requests for it a lot more than we do, as opposed to the people who are like, please don't make that. It's also a completely different type of game. So it's kind of like Lords of Verminion, where you can't guarantee that the people who bought your game to play it for one reason specifically will play it for this other reason. There's so many different factors here that you can't really say it's a good idea. I mean, niche ideas are always risky in any sort of, I guess, demographic that you're looking at. It's always risky when something only hits a small demographic in the first place. Something like Triple Triad. Do you just want to appease to like the few thousand people, maybe even less, that actually do the content because it keeps them playing? Or do you want to try to hit something that is generally seen and used more frequently by more players? It's a tough call. And I have a feeling with the jump puzzles, obviously it's more of on a selfish note. The reason why I like them is because jump puzzles are kind of universal. A lot of us grew up with things like platformers, and a lot of us have played or continue to play platformers to this day. It's a different type of game, but it's also a gameplay type that's kind of been proven over the years. It's not the same quite as a platformer where, you jump from the beginning of stage to the end, jumping on platforms, jumping over enemies, going under enemies, stuff like that. It's all about the movement. But it is something that gets closer to itching a desire more so than a water sport that's based on no actual sport that doesn't actually have any sort of unique gameplay aspects to it. Well, I don't know if you're going to be able to jump puzzle while you're in the queue because it's part of the gold saucer. So I don't know if it's like you have to be in the middle of like a gate, for example, in order to do it, in which case it kind of I don't know if it throws that, if it messes up with it messes it up. I don't know how it's going to affect that, but there's just no guarantee. It's one of those things that's largely unproven, and you really don't have any accurate information that makes it seem like it's worth doing versus just working on MMO style content, content that makes the most sense in MMOs, things that you already have that you can expand upon. So there are compelling arguments, but it's a crapshoot because everything we all say is anecdotal. It's all like, I don't want it, I do want it. People don't want it, people do want it. It's all anecdotal. Nobody has any solid information. So I'm of the opinion that if you're going to create something that's niche content, make it something that is as accessible as possible, something that is as universal as possible. Things like jumping, like platforming, things people grew up on, things people are familiar with. Not a whole new water sport that your non-Final Fantasy X fans or people who are playing 14 and it's the first Final Fantasy play have no fucking care about in the world. And people who did play the old Final Fantasies who probably don't care, talking shit about it. And then how many people play it? And there's so many problems. There's so many problems with it that are just, they're unknowns. I think it would suck. I'm going to go with that. All right, question number 9. Hi, Haps. Hi. Thank you for answering my question a couple weeks back. I don't remember what it was, but you're welcome. I have 2 questions related to the Dragoon Piercing debuff last week. They're somewhat related, so feel free to answer them. What is your opinion on the damage type classification, i.e. physical, magical, pierce/blunt within the physical class overall? Should raid buffs or raid synergy in general be damage type specific, or should they be more similar to tricks or buffs to the secondary stats such as litany, chain, battle voice that benefit all damage types? I think one of the biggest reasons we have debates about meta, which shouldn't really matter, playing good is ultimately what matters, or playing well is ultimately what matters in Final Fantasy XIV. But the reason why we have so many discussions about meta is mostly because of damage classification type debuffs and or buffs. Things that only provide physical damage, things that only reduce resistance to slashing, stuff like that is really where it starts to throw the, it just really creates problems. Monk's blunt resistance only works effectively on Monk. Dragoons is most important for themselves, plus Bard Machinist. And then slashing, all the slashing dudes have anyway, and they don't even need to think about it in the first place. So really, Dragoon creates the problem with that classification. Then you have Brotherhood and Embolden, which are so weird that they're physical specifically for the party. And then you have Trick, which is universal, and it's like, why are we doing it all this way? This is what creates these imbalances and stuff. Just play well. Really, all that matters is play well, and then none of this shit matters if you're all playing well. But as for the damage classification, I do think it's what causes the discussions and the imbalances to occur in the first place. 2, should Square Enix continue with selfish jobs like Black Mage Samurai in the future, or even introduce a new job with a similar mold? So how should they be balanced around other classes? Personally, I'm fine with those jobs and find them pretty fun. At the same time, I can accept the risk of the job is completely on the player, like you have mentioned, for them to have lower raid DPS contribution overall compared to jobs that have more DPS-oriented utilities. The latter is basically to reward players who spend effort to optimize not only on their jobs, but their raid synergy. You can take this discussion in a lot of directions. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with having a no utility DPS job. The problem becomes when they don't do enough extra, kind of at their expected level, to make up for the loss of utility for everybody else. A really well-performing samurai I have no problem with, but I still think they could be even further ahead. And I guess my biggest problem with it is they saw this fail already. They saw Monk throughout all of Heavensward get fucking memed on. They had to buff it like every month or two to a point where they're like, well, okay, we really can't buff it anymore. But at least you got Mantra, right? It was like, it just didn't work. It didn't make sense. And we watched a full expansion of it fail, gave the job utility going into the next expansion, said, no, we'll just make another one. You know, I guess that's kind of what irks me the most about it, is they watched the concept fail. I don't know how, at least Black Mage had things like APOC and stuff back in Heavensward. The only reason Black Mage is part of this discussion now is because of the way roll actions work. Before that, it was like, you know, Black Mage doesn't have a whole lot, but the things that it did have were valued to the raid group. So, it's just, if they didn't have a bad track record of doing it properly, it probably wouldn't bother me as much, Black Mage and Samurai. And a good Black Mage or Samurai is still great. If they do it again, if they leave these jobs as is, or they change them and then they add another job that has no utility, they just make it so its maximum potential is just high enough. Like, just look at the other utilities, what you see the player base already doing, what you expect them to do, and then give it something that's comparable to that, but for themselves, assuming they perform it at a high level. That's the most important thing, assuming they perform it at a high level. And right now, it doesn't matter. Every job's beating Ultimate. Every job's beating every piece of content in the game. Just fucking play with people. That's it. Just find good people, play with good people, and who's like, nah, Samurai, no. Just if they play well, just play with them. All right? Just do it. I'm telling you, just do it. Question number 10. Hey, Mr. Happy, how you doing? You doing all right? I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. You doing all right? You doing all right. Bonus of a nice 10-inch. Sorry. Pepperoni from your favorite pizza house. Never heard them called a pizza house before, but I'll accept it. Question for Yi. Not sure if this has been answered, so don't hate me if so, please. I started my 14th adventure in The Realm Reborn back on the PS3. Alright. The stories and how awful the original 1.0 was. I'm interested to know what happened back then. Do you think Square Enix will make something to retell the story of the original 1.0 who didn't play it? Maybe a movie or a book or does something. I mean, the lore for what happened in it has existed in the game for a very long time. And even the Binding Coil of Bahamut is basically the, I guess, the conclusion of the 1.0 story of everything 1.0 built up to. It's in the game in pieces now, and if you pay attention to the story, it's not difficult to find all of the kind of traits that led up to it. And honestly, we've kind of done a lot of that over again. Outside of Nail and Bahamut, the overall themes of 1.0 were executed on well, but they weren't incredibly unique compared to what we have. Let me rephrase. 2.0 didn't reinvent the wheel all too much in what kind of were the baseline things that were set up in 1.0. So I think if anything, just take the cutscenes and put them in the book. I don't think you really need to create anything else because that content is in the game already. You just have to know where to look for it. All right, we got question number 11. Hey, Hap, why not a question coin flip this time? So just two options. My idea for if I have to talk about Samurai anymore, I'm just going to pick the other one out of prospect because I don't want to talk about Samurai anymore. Everyone is here. What if Lords of... Alright, what if Lords of Minion gets scrapped and we get Smash Bros with minions instead, or Smash Minions? I don't want them making any other piece of content for this game that doesn't inherently belong in an MMO. If they're gonna do something like this, get a separate development team, make it its own game, and then stay the hell out of 14, because at this point, we need to just, we can't keep doing shit like this. We can't just say, well, this is Smash Bros, but it's in fucking 14. Because guess what? People who want to play Smash Bros are just gonna go play Smash Bros. They're gonna be like, yeah, let's do Smash Minions and 14. No, they're just gonna go fucking play Smash Bros because they know what a real game looks like. Yeah. That's all I'm gonna say. And then Nintendo will file a lawsuit. That's the other part. Like, we had the PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. Great, that was its own game. Do that. Go make, if you want, and Cloud's in Smash Bros too, so I don't even know where that starts functioning. Just fuck it. Just tell them to go make their own game at that point. Just don't put it in 14, because if people want to play that kind of game, they're gonna go play a fully developed, dedicated, a game that has a dedicated support, a dedicated dev team that's proven they're good at it for years, and not, yeah, I'm gonna play $12 a month, but at least I get to play Smash Minions. Question number 12. Hey Haps, good day to you. Good day to you too. You think the reason the Warrior Light would go to Garlemald? Okay, I can already tell you right now, there's no real answer to this. This is what I like to call a do you think question. If there's nothing to support it, I don't think anything about it. That's pretty much how I always go with questions like this. It's like, do you think this could happen? It's like, sure, anything could happen. Who am I to say? There's no context to suggest that it will. There's no foreshadowing to say that it will. There's no information from things that have happened before that make me think this, and there's nothing that's happened yet that would make me think this. So pretty much the answer is whatever happens, I'll just accept it. I don't think anything. The only things that I think are things that we have context for now, like, do I think the Shadow Hunter is who we think he is? Yeah, there's pretty compelling evidence in the game to suggest that it's probably him. However, I'm not just gonna, who knows, maybe it is somebody else. I won't rule that out, but let's be honest, it's him. let's be honest, it's him. So yeah, these kind of questions are impossible to answer, pretty much, because there's no context for them. Alright, this is the last question from the forums. Konnichiwa, Happy Senpai. First and last moon runes you'll see in this post. Sorry, I had to be unique somehow. You know what? I actually thought the parentheses was gonna be... Oh no, it is. It's saying, hello, hey, at least you didn't call me what other people call me. I'm not an uncle. I'm not an uncle. Stop it. Never mind. Moving on. I mean, I am an uncle, but I don't want to be called Uncle Happy. I don't want it. So I have a few questions about things. One, what if role actions could be changed to instead be more like skill augments, like having it so certain job GCDs would get these bonuses as opposed to just having them be separate skills? It's a way of looking at things. Like, for example, the effect of Feint, instead of being its own skill, maybe it gets tied to something else. The problem is you have to start considering how often a skill is used, and then you have to start balancing the skills that may not always have the augments around if they had the augments. So I guess with Feint, for example, like, what if they made it so that Steel Peak, the Feint roll augment, let's say it made Steel Peak apply Feint for 10 seconds, and that's what it did. It makes it so you don't have to press an extra button. It now means that Steel Peak has to be balanced around the fact that it's not just a DPS tool, and that it has to be, and that it can be used for this other thing instead. You know, does that mean I've just got to accept that maybe I don't use it on cooldown and it's a DPS loss? Does its cooldown just need to be increased, which also means a DPS loss? Do we instead shift the DPS factor of it off onto other skills so it doesn't affect me as much? It's not an idea that's inherently bad. It's just that we have to compare it to what we have now and determine how it would work. I wouldn't rule that out, though. I mean, augmenting skills is something that I've always kind of had an affinity to, but doing it through the role actions is not something I ever really considered. But it is something that could be interesting and could make it so that players don't necessarily have to have an extra 5 skills on their bar that they didn't always have before. Question number 2, would it make a difference if the whole samurai debate... Why always about samurais? I just need to say, fuck it, samurai's great. Don't ask me questions about it anymore. It's a job I don't even play. Would it make a difference in the whole samurai debate if Yukikaze puts the enervation debuff for like 20 seconds instead of a slashing debuff? Yeah, but then, so the problem with that is if they do that instead of the slashing debuff, now you need somebody else, most likely a warrior, applying the slashing debuff in their place. And then, well, no, fuck it, ninja. Then you want a ninja doing it, because the warrior just wants to... Oh, no, never mind, it doesn't matter. I forget how they've changed all that shit around. Yeah, because MAME applies it, not I anymore. Just job changes. Regardless, you just need to have slashing from somebody else, and now you have innervation. It doesn't change much, it just now means that they don't provide slashing, somebody else needs to provide them slashing, so now you need slashing and innervation in the group, because you want to be as optimal as possible. And, it's just, dude... those debuffs, the piercing, slashing, blunt, man, it's just weird. It's just a dynamic that creates this whole synergy aspect that people like to look at so much. And then the third question is more of a streaming question. Do you have any tips on reducing sound seeping through walls? Soundproofing them. Unfortunately, that's the best thing. I mean, you can do something like stick a towel under there. Like if you have like under the door, like if you have a large gap, just like stick a towel under there. But not just generally buying soundproof, like soundproof curtains, soundproof protection around the door at the very least. A lot of that's used also to prevent sound from bouncing back, so you don't get like echoes and stuff, especially in certain types of rooms, especially if it's rather empty in particular. That's about it. TV being heard through the walls, though, I mean, you might want to just work on a microphone. You might want to get a mixer, and you might want to work on getting. Here, I have one of these. One of these might help. I don't even use it anymore because it's broken. But this is a sound barrier right here that goes around the microphone. And this is a toy for Aloha that I like to hang from it right here. See this? It's one of Aloha's toys. I like to hang it from this so he chases it around a little bit. One of these might help, pretty much, as long as you make sure the microphone is only capturing audio from this side. Also, on top of this, the shield might help you quite a bit if you can't soundproof a whole room. So consider those as your options, you know. With that, though, it's been a pretty long recording, but I'm going to see if there's any decent questions from the Twitch chat. We're done with the questions on the forums, by the way. I'm going to see if there's any decent Twitch chat questions, and if there are, we'll throw them in the video. If not, then the next time you see me, I'll be wrapping the video up. So Twitch, let me see if you have any good questions. Okay, so on Twitch side of things, we had a few discussions, but there wasn't really anything that was too brand new, too YouTube-esque ready discussion question answer thing. So I'm just going to wrap up on the YouTube side of thing with the questions that were actually on the forum. So remember, if you have a question for Mondays with Mr. Happy, best place to ask it is to go to the description of the video, find the forum that has the question thread, and go there. If you come by the stream on Sundays between like 12 and 1 p.m. Pacific, we do the Q&As live. I answer the questions on the forums live, and then I fish for some questions from the Twitch chat as well. Even if they don't get included in the YouTube video, I generally tend to answer as many questions as I can from the Twitch chat, except when they decide they want to ask me questions that they know I don't want to answer, or they know I've answered a million times before, or I told them specifically, please, I don't want anything about this. So then, hey, let me ask you about this. And do you like hot dogs? And do you understand why they sell 8 hot dogs and 12 buns and stuff like that? And I'm just like, I hate every fiber of my being right now. And yeah, that's what I deal with my Twitch chat. So thank you for those of you who asked questions this week. Thank you over on Patreon for the supporters again. Much appreciated. And I'll see you guys for next week for episode 206. Almost at the 4-year mark. Getting close now. Anyway, I'll see you guys for that on the YouTube side of things. Twitch, I'll hang out for a few more minutes, but on YouTube, take care.